When it comes to skills, talent, and learning, allow me to start with one word as a conclusion, and the word is change. Indeed, the world is changing. Businesses are changing, and talent must also change. And no, machines will not simply replace workers. Instead, technology will reconfigure roles and tasks. Emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and virtual reality will be vital for promoting economic growth and for diversifying the economies of countries around the world. In recognition of this, many Arab countries have launched large-scale initiatives to promote the use of these technologies. But the growth promised by intelligent technologies can only be realized if the skill gap is closed. And this is easier said than done. As the nature of work changes, roles are reconfigured and approach to learn as well need to change. To prepare workers to thrive, we need skills for the future, not the past. We need skills now. An exciting new generation of technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, genomics, and augmented and virtual reality are fundamentally impacting the nature of work. Adapting to this new world will require organizations to create completely new roles, many of which do not exist today. These new technologies offer an opportunity for leaders throughout the Arab world to diversify their economies, boost economic growth, and create jobs. As roles and tasks change, new skills will increase in importance. Let me give you an example. Nurses. As AI amplifies the impact in automation and augmentation of the administrative skills that the nurses do, the quality of the empathy they generate will be more relevant in how they care for patients. In a research we did in Accenture, we see a huge demand in creative thinking, complex cognitive capabilities and skills. However, the education today and corporate learning is not really ready, especially in the Arab region, for cultivating these skills. And this impact as well will be a bit uneven across age groups in the region and across gender in the region and across the countries. We see the GCC economy a bit more advanced into this, but other economies in the region may need to prepare for a heavy displacement of workers from roles demanding physical and manual labor, but completely rethinking, planning and investing in reskilling the workers of the future. In every country in the region, there is a need to profoundly transform approaches to learning and to design lifelong learning strategies. How can this be achieved? We in Accenture call it PACE, and PACE stands for Personalized, Accelerated, Continuous and Exponential Learning. Technology, when you pair with the advances in science of learning, will be absolutely fundamental to facilitate this new way of learning. To deliver PACE learning at scale will require an ecosystem approach, driven by partnerships between businesses, academia, government, and as well startups. Our research anticipates that vulnerable groups such as low-skilled workers, women, will need special attention in this process. Let me elaborate a bit about the PACE. Personalize. We have seen a lot of push to boost the STEM skills, which is engineering and so on skills, or alternatively pushing creativity skills. What we believe is really that has been especially neglected is the combination of both. For Arab youth, this blended skill set will be essential to fundamentally address the changing demands of the digital economy. Custom learning paths can be designed by bringing the thing together. Adaptive learning platforms can create customized content for this. So this is the P, accelerated. We're seeing 40% of employers in the MENA region reporting a skills shortage. And this skill shortage is deterring their progress in terms of growth and is impacting fundamentally the economies. So accelerated skilling requires mechanism to address quickly these skill shortages, to be able to rapidly train and redeploy workers. The third dimension is continuous. As each person will require a complex combination of skills to succeed in the digital economy, it is important that educators begin cultivating these evolving combinations of skills in Arab youth right from elementary school. For example, in the UK, there are heated debates over where initiatives to promote STEM skills are compromising efforts to promote creativity through classes in music, art, drama. Universities and colleges need to make great efforts to cross-fertilize ideas and promote multidisciplinary learning. And last but not least, experiential. With experiential learning, learners are active participants in the educational process rather than passive recipients of knowledge, right? So numerous studies highlight the importance of experiential learning to improve the learning outcomes. And for this, leveraging technologies and virtual augmented reality really does facilitate the learning. Technology is relentlessly pushing the boundaries of experience, and use cases from aircraft pilot testing dangerous situations to physicians experimenting collaborative hands-on learning about rare diseases. These are real critical, but as well we see countries doing a lot of work on apprenticeship. The French government, for instance, that has also taken steps to make apprenticeship more attractive by increasing monthly pay, raising maximum age of participants from 26 to 30, and giving business and labor unions freedom to decide minimum qualification for vocational training programs. These are examples, and it's possible, and it has an impact. The urgent need for action has only accelerated with the global COVID-19 pandemic, which exposed the sharp digital divide in the Arab region. As classrooms move online, students without access to digital infrastructure were left behind. In the research, 48% of the households in the Arab region do not have access to home internet, or around 56 million people of school and university going age live in areas with no mobile phone coverage. The survey that Arab Youth Center realized found that 2 out of 3 people between 15 and 35 years old have very limited accessibility of internet and find it as a main priority. Digital enablement will be absolutely fundamental in the agenda of the governments because there's many jobs to be created. According to the World Bank, over 300 million jobs will be created around by 2050, and technology sits at the core of them. However, the potential of AI and other emerging technologies to boost economic growth and employment can only be fully realized if the relevant knowledge and skills are imparted to the younger generations. The need is urgent. Arab nations taken together have the highest estimated youth unemployment rate in the world. Young people ages between 15 and 24 are 4 times more likely than adults over 25 to be unemployed. Finding better paying and more productive jobs will improve their long-term social and economic prospects. And yes, there is a material difference between GCC countries and the non-GCC countries, but the overall region is in action today. And let me share another relevant data point on education from another Arab youth survey. Nearly half of the Arab youth feel that the current education system is not preparing them for the jobs of the future. Again, there's difference amongst GCC countries and non-GCC countries, but there is fundamental challenge on alignment of education to the jobs. There is a growing evidence that skills mismatch in the region is impacting business growth. The ease of finding skilled employees is below the global average in most of the countries, with a few exceptions like UAE and Bahrain. Urgent measures to change the education system can help bridge the current skill gaps to some extent, but more important than this is to help people develop long-term skills for the future. This will help countries in the region adapt to technological changes and prevent the situation from worsening. This requires a nuanced approach underpinned by lifelong learning. Addressing the skills challenge may appear simple, but it is not. To understand how technology will affect future skills demand, we need to ask how roles will be redefined and how tasks will change as workers are augmented by machines. We run an analysis over US jobs and how the tasks in these jobs have shifted in the last decade. And the shift described are similar across the world and as well, of course, in the Arab region. Let me put some examples. For instance, retail cashiers that are part of what we call it the physical services role cluster. A decade ago, they used to stock shelves and price items every day. Now, they do this only once a week, but addressing customer queries and so on is something that now they do it every hour, and before was doing it much less. So, massive change. As well, maintenance engineers. Basically, 10 years ago, they were calibrating equipment only once a week, but today we see this, they only do this maybe once or twice a month. Instead, now helping colleagues to install sophisticated equipment happens much more often today. So, with the evolving nature of work, demand for new skill sets is growing. Accenture's analysis reveals a combination of 4 skills: complex reasoning, creativity, social, emotional intelligence, and sensory perception skills becoming increasingly relevant for almost every single new role. And this is particularly true for certain types of role clusters that are likely to grow in importance with the spread of intelligent technologies. For example, management leadership, for which the combination of complex reasoning, creativity, and socio-emotional intelligence are skills of paramount importance. To apply the PACE approach at scale, we believe that there's 4 things that are needed. And the first one is the role of the ecosystem, what we call it the multi-stakeholder partnerships, that basically the ecosystem that brings government, corporates, universities, and other independent institutions needs to connect the dots between education and employment to balance supply and demand. These partnerships not only ensure shared responsibility, but also promote cost-sharing, reducing the economic burden on a single entity. There are many examples of such programs across the globe, with relevant reference in North America or Singapore. The Skills Future initiative, which pays under $400 for government-approved courses to all citizens aged 25 and older. In our region, in the Middle East and GCC, the broader GCC, but as well across the Arab world, we see digital platforms can play a significant role in bringing public and private sector organizations together to scale up and skill programs. With the support of Udacity, Facebook, Oracle, the United Arab Emirates government created the 1 Million Coders. This is a platform providing free digital skills development training. The program saw over almost 400,000 individuals register for the first edition, and it's backed by agreements with several companies to provide employment opportunities to graduates, and this creates the supply and demand alignment. The second point is building awareness. To prepare the future work, Arab youth needs to be aware of the skills that will be relevant in the future. So how can government and businesses and organizations raise awareness of the skills that will be relevant? Let me put an example. There's the good case of Oman Future Skills Initiative that has identified the skills that will be important for raising the country productivity, which helped the country's government to identify the gaps of the current system and to develop a guide for the policymakers and stakeholders, that includes the private sector, youth groups, and academia, to really get it into place. The third point is we need to empower the vulnerable learners. The automation will affect lower skill work much more than other types of work. So 13% of the people are in the low skilled area in the region, and there is a significant risk of that intelligent technologies impact and accelerate inequalities. So focus shouldn't only be in youth, but as well in older workers, women, and people with a bit less high capability work. And the fourth is to reach for tomorrow, but do it now. Today's educational and training systems were built for an industrial age, where diversity of skills across the workforce was important. But as human and machine collaboration growth, a blend of skills within each worker will become more relevant. Creativity, social, emotional intelligence, and complex reasoning skills are becoming more fundamental in every work role. The continuously evolving demand for skills means that countries in the region will need to design new learning model that is personalized, accelerated, experiential, and continuous. PACE. PACE is the word. We'd like to put forward a few key recommendations for the public, private sectors, and academia to consider. On one side, governments will have a very big role to play. On one way, promoting open data initiatives to stimulate innovative approaches, which could come from experts, academics, combining national statistics with real-time hiring data to generate more granular and accurate insight about the skills that are critical and the talent requirements for the future. As well, leveraging advanced big data and analytics to track labor market and skill dynamics more accurately. Governments must as well improve the enabling environment that will allow education and corporate learning initiatives to thrive in the next era. The private sector, including as well as startups, should benefit from the advances in neuroscience and the deeper, faster and more personalized learning brought by the new technologies like AI and VR, right? Embedding experiential learning into everyday work is absolutely fundamental, facilitated of course by AR, VR and so on. They should experiment with blockchain to provide secure, transparent, decentralized, credentialized funding models for lifelong learning, right? And of course, all this in an ecosystem play, bringing private, public organizations together with universities and venture capital too. And of course, there's many cases as well leveraging globally in Switzerland and the US that really have brought accelerated learning in the private sector. And finally, of course, academia and teachers should be prepared to teach and assess students in the new skills. Like complex reasoning, socio-emotional intelligence and creativity needs to be assessed. There needs to be promotion of more project-based learning, active learning, collaborative learning, instilling growth mindset in the students. Start the process of lifelong and experiential learning from schools need to be done today, because to prepare workers to thrive, we need these skills for the future. But these skills needs to be designed based on the future needs, not by the past needs. We need the new skills and we need them today.